Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and I'm going to be looking at a game from the 2011 Women's Grand Prix in Rostov, Russia. And so this game is between Alexandra Kosteniuk playing the white pieces against Yifan Hou playing the black pieces. And so go ahead and get started here. So Hou is playing knight f6 and e6, and after knight f3 is a very flexible move order. So black can transpose into almost any line except the king's Indian. Could play b6 into the queen's Indian. Could play bishop b4 into some Nimzo Indian lines. c5 could lead to the Benoni, or Hugh's choice of d5. So this could go into any number of Slav defense variations. So after knight c3 and bishop b4. So this is a pretty aggressive line where black is planning to play very, very actively and very dynamically to try to catch white off guard right out of the opening. So now with h6, go ahead and put the question to the bishop, so that if bishop takes f6, then queen takes f6, that's already taken care of. And if bishop h4, which seems to be kind of the main line in this opening, now black can play g5 in the future in one move and won't have to worry about bishop takes f6. So now c5. So again, black is playing extremely actively. There's also some ideas of playing g5 in the future, maybe knight to e4 and queen to a5 in some different lines. So white has got to be really pretty careful in this. On the flip side, usually white will have a static advantage with due to the more solid pawn structure. So white's usually trying to play a little bit more long-term positional chess, whereas black is trying to play active, dynamic, and going straight for the kill out of the opening. So now c4. So this is a pretty interesting move here. And I think I saw Hugh play a similar line in round 1 against Hompi Conneru. And so with c4, black is directly trying to claim a queenside pawn majority. So clamping some space on the queen side. Also preventing white from playing d takes c5 in the future, and preventing the development of the light squared bishop along the b1 h7 diagonal. So c4 going for the immediate clamp. So now knight d2. So the idea for white in the future is often to play f3 and e4. So knight d2 also steps out of any nasty pin ideas, with queen a5. So it's also preventing the knight from coming to e4 maybe after g5. So now g5 and bishop to f5. So black is achieving some good development. She's gained space on both sides of the board. So again, black's going to have some long-term weaknesses if she can't make it work out of the opening. G5 is going to be weak, d5 is going to be weak, but easier said than done for white. So bishop e2, normal developing moves, and h4. This move struck me maybe as a faulty plan. As I was going through it, I was trying to figure out, where did Kosteniuk make a mistake? I didn't see any obvious mistakes, but I think this plan was faulty. It just doesn't make sense because, first of all, I would think it's going to be tough for white to castle queenside because black's already got the pawn on c4, and it's going to be pretty easy for her to roll the pawns for an attack. So that means the white king's going to have to go kingside if she's ever going to have any chance of playing f3 and e4. So by playing h4, it just seems weird to open the h-file for your opponent's attack. Just as a general rule, you don't want to move pawns in front of your king. If the king's going to the king side, why play h4? So the other moves, it was kind of tough to recommend something else because let's say rook c1, then black can just play queen a5 immediately. And now she's threatening to take the pawn and maybe take a2. But it seems like white's going to have some good compensation. So the idea behind rook b1, what I was really thinking was to play b3. And if white can play b3 and undermine that pawn, get her queen active, start putting some pressure on that d5 pawn, maybe she'll have some good counterplay. But with h4, yes, the g5 pawn was weakened, but the h-file, so rook g8 is just a normal move, and now the h-file is going to be open. So as we'll see, rook c1, okay, normal moves. Queen e7, black is maybe thinking about going queenside here. Queen e7 also prevents bishop coming to e5 and trying, white trying to mix it up in the center and open the game. So now with castles, white had to get her king out of the center. So now the h file is just open for attack. So the plan with h4 just it didn't make sense to me. So bishop takes c3. This was a nice idea by Hou, just giving up the dark squared bishop, but now b5. And so the pawn majority on the queen side just starts rolling and really cramps white, and white doesn't have any space to operate. So now it's getting very, already after 16 moves, the position is very precarious for white here because she simply doesn't have any counterplay. It's almost impossible to play f3 and e4 because the d4 pawn is weak. And there's nowhere for the bishop on e2 and the knight on d2 to go and to be developed actively. So with b5, now she's got to worry about the space on the queen side as well as an attack on the king side. So a4 and now a6, so that if takes and takes, this would just open the black rook on the a file. So now queen to a1. So queen a1 also I thought was a weird move because white's got to get counterplay almost at all costs. So I think she was maybe planning, I guess, rook to a3 in some lines, or just making space to get the other rook out of the way from the king side. But it's going to be a very difficult position for white now because after b4, now the queen is kind of trapped on a1 and it doesn't have really any influence on the position and especially can't help defend the king. So now knight e4, just very, very natural moves by black, but at the same time she's playing extremely actively and precisely. So that's the key. So maybe in this position, I almost want to say maybe white, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough, but I would start thinking, I mean, the position is getting to the point. Maybe here after knight takes, you could try f3, bishop f2, and then try to break with e4. You got to get some kind of counterplay. Even though the queen's way out of play, if white just sits there, it's going to be very easy for black to just double the heavies on the h file, and it's going to be pretty decisive infiltration on the h file. So now a5, and the idea is just too slow, and I don't really see any kind of forcing moves from white. So now g4, a nice move by black. Just there's no way white's going to play f3 now and open up that g file. And queen to a4, the counterplay is superficial. Queen e6 defends very easily, and the queen is also, this is a much better move. Queen d7, not nearly as good, because after queen e6, the queen is just threatening to go to h6 while still defending the knight on c6. So now after rook d1 and rook c8, Kosteniuk would try bishop f4 to try to stop the queen from coming to h6, but just queen f5, very simple. Queen is still centralized. A lot of pressure on the white position, and it's very simple how this arrived at this type of pressure. So now king f1, and this is the beginning of the end because if the king's got to run, the king side pawns on g2 and f2 are just going to drop. So now queen h5, very simple, just threatening to infiltrate and pick up that g2 pawn while maintaining the pressure. So picking up a pawn with the bishop, and it's I don't know what to offer white here. I mean, maybe I think maybe almost earlier I would have just tried to angle for a piece sack just to get some kind of counterplay in the center to distract black from the attack. Although it would be pretty speculative. So now bishop f3. Nice move. Just go ahead and exchange that bishop that's defending and open up some lines for the rook to infiltrate and also put some pressure on that weakness on f2. So a couple of exchanges. And now queen h4, definitely a nice move. I mean, it was possible to go ahead and maybe queen h2. Either way you look at it, I mean, queen h4 is the best move because go ahead and just put some pressure on that f2 pawn, introduce the threat of rook g1, and there's no way for white to defend the pawn. If king f1, maybe even just rook g1, and now queen h3, and there's no way to stop the mate. So king f1 wouldn't really make sense anyway. I mean, white's trying to get the king out of there. So b3, And after rook g2, now this was a nice move, very accurate, because the immediate rook g1, white's going to go ahead and run. There's not really much difference, as black is definitely winning here, but it's not so clear. White's got maybe some counterplay coming on the e file, and it's not nearly as accurate as the game continuation chosen by Hou. So rook g2, a very nice move. Go ahead and try to clutter up white's pieces, disconnect the coordination of the rooks. So after rook c2, defending the mate, now throwing the check because the white pieces are less coordinated. So a couple of accurate moves by Hou here. Queen takes e3, and what are you going to do? I mean, bishop d2 was a nice try, but after check, Kosteniuk resigned because king c1 and f2 and f1, and there's no way for white to stop black from just getting an extra queen. So an excellent piece of preparation by Yifan Hou, just really going at it, playing extremely aggressive chess from the opening. And I believe this game was played in round 3. So Hou actually won the first 4 games in this tournament, which enabled her to really coast to the finish after that. And I think after those 4 games, she had a performance rating of over 2,900. So this girl's absolutely playing out of her mind in 2011. And it'll be interesting to see, how long can she keep it up, dominating the women's chess field as it is right now. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.